Apple has unplugged plans for a self-driving car, giving up billions in potential revenue, according to the latest reports. Bloomberg says that the iPhone maker has officially scrapped its development of the car and broke the news to nearly 2,000 employees in the division on Tuesday. The company turned the key on the project a decade ago, spent billions of dollars supporting it amid multiple leadership changes. Apple will reassign employees working on the car to the company's artificial intelligence division, where they will focus on generative AI projects. Okay, let's get some analysis on this from Naeem Aslam. He's Chief Investment Officer for Zay Capital Markets. Welcome to you. First of all, what does this decision mean? Is this a big deal for Apple?
Sure, thanks for having me. Look, I think the Apple, because everyone was expecting a car, because if you look at the competitors like Xiaomi and Foxconn, which is another provider, chip provider to Apple, they are still very much working on the similar project. Like Xiaomi has already announced and produced a car. So yes, in terms of a market expectations, they were building up for the last 10 years, as you correctly said, and even in 2023, the total R&D expenditure from the company's perspective was in the area of 30 billion. But from investors' perspective and the long-term investors' perspective, I think this is sort of a good news, because if you look at Apple's product, the overall performance, the overall innovation in them, you could see there's this consistency of lack of innovation among Apple's iPhone, amongst AirPods. Yes, they have produced a virtual reality headset, but extremely, extremely expensive product. And if you look at the performance of the stock in relation to what the Nasdaq has done, you can clearly see that Apple is certainly lagging when it used to be the leading stock within that particular index.
Naeem, about 5 years ago, I was studying financial technology, and the talk about autonomous cars at the time was that this was going to change the world. It was going to change the way that people travel to work, which the knock-on effect it was going to affect property prices. Really revolutionary was the belief at the time. Fast forward to today, it's been slow progress. What's the demand like for autonomous cars?
I think that look, that equation is still looking it still looks immensely healthy. And I think the only thing that we are very much lagging is support from regulation perspective. And that is for the right reason, because obviously they need to have a certain amount of hours. They're going to make sure that it is about public safety and everything which comes within that particular area. But whether do you, what I, if you ask me a question that, okay, Naeem, do you like to be driven by an autonomous car on your journey, which is 4 hours long, while you can sit in your own car and do your work, or or maybe you're doing other activities which you prefer rather than driving the car? The answer would be yes. And then I'm sure you will see a similar echo among other people as well. So the future is there. And of course, Tesla, Mustang by Ford, they are making huge, or they have already made huge progress in this particular space. So that is still an area where Apple could perhaps do the plug and play function how it is doing with its phone, among other cars.
Naeem, I understand that Apple wants to be seen as innovative, but pursuing self-driving cars and then just dumping them like it has to pursue AI. I mean, would it be fair to accuse Apple of just chasing the next shiny new thing rather than perhaps sticking at what it's good at?
Well, look, I think the next big shiny new thing is, of course, in the health care sector, the preventative devices which could alert you to from a certain disease which you may develop in the next 5 years or in a year's time, or something, or whatever that time frame is. And I think Apple is certainly working hard in that particular area with its iWatches and bringing more and more healthcare features. And I think that is the focus. Again, I wanted to say about the autonomous feature, yes, we may not see a car by Apple, but we may still see some softwares developed by them because obviously they are not letting go that huge army of developers and workers working within that particular area. So artificial intelligence is, of course, the way forward. And you could say it for sure, I could say for sure that nowadays we are using some form of artificial intelligence in our daily lives already, which has improved the workload to a larger or to a greater extent. So I think that yes, to answer your question briefly, look, Apple is already has many things under its belt, and it can perform much better by keeping a focus there.
Naeem, it's been a pleasure to speak to you. Thanks for your input. My guest,
Thanks,
Naeem Aslam, Chief Investment Officer for Zay Capital Markets. Okay, let's have a quick roundup of business stories making headlines around the world. Japan's Toyota's announced a 7% year-on-year increase in global vehicle production for January. That marks the 13th consecutive month of growth. The automaker benefited from strong US demand. Total output for January reached more than 740,000 vehicles, while world sales climbed approximately 11% compared to the same period last year. Hong Kong's economy is forecast to grow by at least 2.5% this year after the city's financial secretary announced a raft of measures to boost it. Paul Chan has scrapped property tightening measures, including stamp duty on residential housing, and announced more than $127 million worth of support for the territory's tourism industry. Huawei spin-off Honor will launch its first foldable flip phone this year, targeting the market space occupied by brands like Samsung and Motorola. It's part of the company's plans to enter the premium smartphone market. The electronic maker has also announced plans for a smart ring a day after Samsung debuted its own offering of the product.